Hello, discover a land where hospitality is the law and every turn of the road reveals a $1,000,000 view. Albania is a country where the snow-capped peaks of the Alps meet the turquoise waters of two seas, and ancient history intertwines with incredible warmth. It is Europe's last secret, ready to surprise you with wild beaches, vibrant cities, and the authentic flavors of Balkan traditions. Here are 20 essential facts for every visitor. Tip 1. Cash is still king. Before you arrive in Albania, make sure you have local currency in your wallet. The Albanian currency is the lek, abbreviated as ALL, and despite the country's rapid modernization, cash remains the dominant form of payment in the vast majority of situations. Outside of the larger hotels, upscale restaurants in Tirana, and some international chains, card payments are still not widely accepted. Markets, small guest houses, local cafes, taxi drivers, roadside food stalls, and most shops in smaller towns and villages will only take cash. ATMs are widely available in Tirana and in most larger towns, and they generally work reliably with international cards, though fees can vary depending on your bank. It is a good idea to withdraw a reasonable sum when you have the opportunity, as ATMs can be scarce in rural areas and mountain villages. The exchange rate is typically favorable for visitors from Western Europe or North America, making Albania one of the most affordable destinations on the continent. Euro is informally accepted in some tourist areas and border regions, but you will usually get a worse rate than at a currency exchange office. Official exchange offices called Kambimvalitor can be found easily in cities and offer competitive rates without commission. Avoid exchanging money with unofficial street changers, as this is both illegal and risky. Keep small denominations handy for everyday transactions, as getting change for large notes can sometimes be a challenge in smaller establishments. Tip 2. The head nod means no. The head shake means yes. This is perhaps the single most important piece of practical advice for any visitor to Albania, and it will save you from enormous confusion. In Albania, the body language for yes and no is the reverse of what most Western visitors expect. When an Albanian nods their head up and down, they typically mean no. When they shake their head from side to side, they usually mean yes. This tradition is shared with neighboring Bulgaria and parts of the Balkans and can be traced back to Ottoman-era customs, though its exact origins are debated. For a visitor who is not aware of this difference, the results can be genuinely bewildering. You ask a taxi driver if he knows the address. He nods, and you assume he does, but he is actually saying he does not. You ask a shopkeeper if they have a particular item. She shakes her head, and you walk away, when in fact she was confirming that she has it. The confusion is compounded by the fact that many younger Albanians, particularly in Tirana and tourist areas, have adopted the Western convention after exposure to international media and travel, so you may encounter both systems depending on who you speak to and where you are. The safest approach is to ask questions that require a verbal answer rather than relying on head movements alone, and to pay close attention to context. Once you are aware of this difference, you will notice it constantly, and it will quickly become one of the most memorable quirks of your Albanian experience. Tip 3. Driving in Albania requires full attention. Renting a car is one of the best ways to explore Albania, particularly if you want to reach the mountains, the southern coast, or smaller villages that are not well served. By public transport, however, driving in Albania is not for the faint-hearted and requires a level of alertness that goes beyond what most visitors are used to. Road conditions vary enormously. The main highways connecting Tirana to the coast and to Kosovo are modern and well-maintained, but secondary roads, particularly in rural and mountainous areas, can be narrow, unpaved, potholed, and winding, with sheer drops and no barriers. Mountain roads may be impassable after heavy rain or in winter due to snow. Traffic behavior can be unpredictable, overtaking on blind corners, ignoring lane markings, and driving at speed on narrow roads are all common. Livestock, cows, sheep, and horses frequently wander onto roads, especially in rural areas, and can appear around a bend with no warning. Speed bumps are common in towns and villages, often unmarked and aggressive. Parking in Tirana is chaotic, and finding a legal space can be a challenge. Fuel stations are plentiful on main roads but can be widely spaced in remote areas, so it is wise to fill up whenever you have the chance. If you are comfortable with adventurous driving and plan carefully, road tripping through Albania is a genuinely rewarding experience. Just ensure your car rental insurance is comprehensive, drive defensively, and never be in a hurry. Tip 4. The Albanian hospitality is really accepted graciously. Albanians have a concept called mikprichja, which translates roughly as hospitality or the welcoming of guests. And it is not simply a courtesy, it is a deeply held cultural value with roots in the ancient customary code of the Canon. If you are invited into an Albanian home, you are entering a world where the guest is treated as a gift. You will be offered food, drink, and gifts, and your host will insist on paying for everything, will give you the best seat, and will go to considerable lengths to make you feel welcome. Refusing hospitality can be perceived as rude or even offensive, so it is important to accept offers graciously even if you are not hungry or thirsty. It is perfectly acceptable to eat or drink a small amount and express genuine appreciation when visiting someone's home. It is customary to bring a small gift. Sweets, wine, or flowers are all appropriate. Remove your shoes at the door if you see that the household does. When you meet someone for the first time in a social context, a handshake is standard, and close friends often greet each other with kisses on the cheek. Albanians are naturally curious about foreign visitors and will often strike up conversations, ask where you are from, and express genuine interest in your impressions of their country. This openness can feel overwhelming at first, but is entirely well-intentioned. Responding with warmth and curiosity will open doors and create connections that turn a visit to Albania into something genuinely memorable. Tip 5. Tap water. When to drink and when to avoid. Water safety is a practical consideration that every visitor to Albania should be aware of before they arrive. The situation varies significantly depending on where you are in the country. In Tirana and in some larger cities, the tap water is technically treated, but the condition of old and often poorly maintained pipes means that the water reaching your tap may not be reliably safe to drink. Most locals in urban areas drink bottled water for everyday consumption, and it is sensible for visitors to do the same. Bottled water is cheap and widely available throughout the country. You will find it in every shop, cafe, and restaurant at very reasonable prices in rural areas and mountain villages. The situation is often better in one respect and worse in another. Many mountain springs and village fountains flow with genuinely excellent fresh water that locals drink without hesitation, and in many such places the water is among the best you will ever taste. However, without local knowledge, it can be difficult to know which sources are reliably clean, so caution is advisable. When eating at restaurants, ordering bottled water is standard practice and will not seem unusual. If you are trekking or hiking in the mountains, carry sufficient water or use a reliable filtration method. Ice in drinks at reputable restaurants is generally fine. The overall risk from water in Albania is relatively low compared to many other travel destinations, but following the simple precaution of drinking bottled water in urban areas will ensure your trip is not disrupted by digestive problems. Tip 6. Try the food. Albanian cuisine is a revelation. One of the greatest pleasures of visiting Albania is the food, and it would be a significant mistake to stick to familiar international dishes when you are here. Albanian cuisine is fresh, flavorful, generous, and largely unknown to most of the world, which makes discovering it one of the genuine joys of the trip. The cuisine reflects the country's position at the crossroads of Mediterranean and Balkan traditions. drawing on influences from Ottoman, Greek, Italian, and indigenous Albanian cooking. Lamb and veal are the most common meats and are typically grilled or slow-cooked with fresh herbs. Tavkosi is a national dish worth trying everywhere you go. A baked casserole of lamb and rice cooked in a rich yogurt and egg sauce. Bayrak is a flaky, savory pastry filled with cheese, spinach, or meat, and is sold at street stalls and bakeries. From early morning, it makes an excellent breakfast. Fresh seafood is exceptional along the coast, and the grilled fish at a simple waterfront restaurant in Himara or Sarand is as good as anything the Mediterranean has to offer. Albanian dairy products are outstanding. The white cheese, yogurt, and butter produced from free-range animals in mountain villages have an intensity of flavor that is hard to find elsewhere. Raki, the local grape or mulberry spirit, is the traditional drink of hospitality and will be offered to you frequently. Albanian wine, from grapes grown in the sunny river valleys, has improved dramatically in recent years and is well worth exploring. Eat where the locals eat. Try the dishes you cannot identify, and you will not be disappointed. Tip 7. Learn a few words of Albanian. Albanian is not a language that many foreign visitors will arrive knowing, and it is true that English is widely spoken among younger Albanians, particularly in Tirana, tourist areas, and the hospitality industry. However, making the effort to learn even a handful of Albanian words and phrases will transform your experience of the country. Albanians are enormously proud of their unique language, one of the oldest in Europe and a linguistic isolate with no close relatives, and they respond with genuine warmth and delight when a foreigner makes the effort to speak even a few words. The basics are straightforward. Falamindrit means thank you, and using it will earn you smiles everywhere you go. Mirdita is a daytime greeting meaning good day. Pol means yes, and Joe means no, which is worth knowing given the confusing head movement conventions described elsewhere. Ju lutem means please. Farkashtan means how much does it cost. Sijeni means how are you, and Mir Falaminderit, fine thank you, is a useful response. Numbers are worth learning for market shopping and transport negotiations. Albanians will generally speak slowly and clearly if you signal that you are trying to communicate in their language, and the attempt alone creates goodwill that makes every subsequent interaction easier. In older rural areas and among older generations, English may not be spoken at all, making basic Albanian phrases genuinely useful rather than merely charming. A small phrasebook or a downloaded offline language app will serve you well throughout your journey. Tip 8. Understand the transport system before you travel. Getting around Albania requires some advanced planning and a flexible attitude. The country does not have a passenger rail network worth speaking of for tourist purposes. The trains that do exist are infrequent, very slow, and limited in their routes. The primary form of intercity public transport is the Fergan, a shared minibus that operates on fixed routes between towns and cities. Fergans are inexpensive, frequent on busier routes, and give you an authentic experience of how Albanians travel, but they operate on a fill-and-go basis rather than fixed timetables, meaning you may wait until the vehicle is full before it departs. Large buses also operate on major intercity routes and are more comfortable and reliable for longer journeys. Tirana has a growing network of buses and, more recently, an urban bus system that has been significantly improved, but traffic congestion in the capital can make journeys slow. Taxis are widely available in cities and are reasonably priced by Western European standards, but it is important to agree on the fare before you get in, as meters are not always used. Ride-hailing apps such as Bolt operate in Tirana and are a convenient and transparent alternative to street taxis for exploring the coast and the mountains. Renting a car gives you the greatest freedom, though the roads demand respect as described separately. Ferries connect Sarand with Corfu in Greece, and there are international ferry connections from Durrës to Italy, making Albania accessible by sea as well as by land and air. Tip 9. Dress modestly when visiting religious sites. Albania is a country with a rich religious heritage and a tradition of remarkable interfaith tolerance. Mosques, Orthodox churches, Catholic churches, Bektashi tekis, and historic monasteries are found throughout the country and are among its most rewarding cultural and architectural destinations. When visiting any of these places, it is important to dress and behave respectfully in accordance with the norms of each tradition. For mosques, both men and women should ensure their shoulders and knees are covered before entering. Women are required to cover their hair, and scarves are usually available at the entrance if you do not have one. Shoes must be removed before entering a mosque for Orthodox churches and Catholic churches. Modest dress is expected, and women should cover their heads in Orthodox churches. Photography inside religious buildings may or may not be permitted. Always check before pointing your camera. And if you see worshippers in prayer, be particularly discreet and respectful. The Bektashi tekis, which are the spiritual centers of the Bektashi Sufi order, whose world headquarters is in Tirana, have a more relaxed atmosphere and are often remarkably welcoming to curious visitors, but the same basic principles of modest dress and quiet, respectful behavior apply. Visiting Albania's religious sites is not only a matter of cultural courtesy, it is also one of the most interesting ways to understand the country's unique history of coexistence. Many of these buildings are architecturally stunning and historically fascinating, and the effort of dressing appropriately is entirely worthwhile. Tip 10. Be careful with photography. Albania offers extraordinary photographic opportunities at every turn: dramatic mountain landscapes, colorful Ottoman architecture, ancient ruins, vibrant street life, and faces full of character. As a visitor with a camera, you will rarely be short of subjects. However, there are some important considerations to keep in mind to ensure that your photography is both legal and respectful. Military installations, border crossings, police stations, and government buildings should not be photographed. This is a legal restriction that is taken seriously and is a legacy of the security-obsessed communist era. Always be cautious if you are unsure whether a building has an official function. Photographing people, it is courteous and respectful to ask permission first, particularly in rural areas, among older people, and in religious contexts. Most Albanians in tourist areas are relaxed about being photographed and may actively enjoy it, but in more traditional communities, particularly in the north, people may be less comfortable with cameras, and it is important to respect their wishes. Photographing inside museums may require a small additional fee or specific permission when driving through the countryside. Be careful not to photograph police checkpoints or military vehicles. On the positive side, Albania has some of the most photogenic landscapes and architecture in Europe, and with a little sensitivity and common sense, you will return home with images that are truly remarkable. The combination of natural light, dramatic scenery, and vivid colors makes Albania a photographer's paradise for those who approach it with respect. T11. Bargaining is acceptable in markets, but not everywhere. Understanding where it is appropriate to negotiate prices and where it is not will make your shopping experience in Albania both more economical and more enjoyable. Albania has a lively tradition of open-air markets known as pazari, where fresh produce, clothing, household goods, handmade crafts, and antiques are sold. In these market settings, particularly when buying clothing, souvenirs, craft items, or second-hand goods, gentle negotiation is perfectly normal and expected. Sellers often start at a higher price, anticipating that the buyer will make a counter-offer, and the process of arriving at a mutually acceptable price is part of the social ritual of the market. Be friendly, smile, and approach negotiation as a pleasant exchange rather than a confrontation. Starting at around 60 to 70% of the asking price is a reasonable opening position for craft and souvenir items. For fresh food, vegetables, fruit, meat, and fish, Prices are usually fixed, and negotiation is less common, though buying in larger quantities may prompt a spontaneous discount. In shops, restaurants, and hotels, prices are generally fixed, and it would be inappropriate to attempt to bargain. Taxi fares, as mentioned, should be agreed in advance, and it is reasonable to ask about the fare before getting in, though this is more about avoiding overcharging than true negotiation. Overall, Albanians are fair and straightforward in commercial transactions, and tourists are rarely aggressively overcharged. A relaxed and friendly approach to all transactions will serve you well throughout your stay. Tip 12. The sun and heat on the coast can be intense. If you are visiting the Albanian Riviera or the Adriatic coast during the summer months, particularly from June through August, be fully prepared for intense Mediterranean heat and strong sun. Temperatures regularly exceed 35 degrees Celsius during the peak summer period, and the sun reflects powerfully off both the water and the white limestone of the coastal cliffs. Heat-related illness is a genuine risk for visitors who are not accustomed to these conditions, particularly if you are planning to hike, swim long distances, or spend extended periods outdoors without shade. High-factor sun protection is essential and should be reapplied frequently, especially after swimming. A wide-brimmed hat and protective sunglasses are strongly recommended, not optional. Avoid the most intense sun between noon and 4 in the afternoon by seeking shade, enjoying a long lunch in the traditional Mediterranean style, or resting at your accommodation. Hydration is critical. Drink water consistently throughout the day, more than you think you need, and be aware that alcohol and caffeine increase dehydration. Lighter meals during the hottest part of the day are advisable. The Albanian coast is absolutely beautiful in summer, but it demands respect for the climate. The shoulder seasons May, early June, September, and early October offer wonderful weather with temperatures in the mid to high 20s, far smaller crowds, and prices that are often significantly lower than peak season. For many visitors, these months represent the ideal time to experience the Albanian coast at its most relaxed and enjoyable. Tip 13. Understand the tipping culture. Tipping in Albania is appreciated, but not as rigidly expected as in some other countries. And understanding the local customs will help you navigate this aspect of your visit graciously. In restaurants, it is customary to leave a tip of around 10% of the bill for good service, though this is not obligatory. Many restaurants will not automatically add a service charge to the bill, so leaving cash on the table or rounding up the payment is the normal way to show appreciation. In smaller family-run restaurants and rural tavernas, leaving a tip is a warm gesture that will be genuinely valued and remembered at cafes and bars. Rounding up the bill or leaving small change is perfectly appropriate and warmly received. For taxi drivers, rounding up the fare is the standard practice. You do not need to calculate a specific percentage. Simply telling the driver to keep the change from a rounded amount is entirely normal. Hotel staff, including porters who carry your luggage, appreciate a small tip of a few hundred lek. Tour guides, particularly those leading private or small group tours, typically receive tips of around 10 to 15% of the tour cost if the service has been good, though this is at your discretion. It is always better to tip in cash rather than including it in a card payment, as cash tips are more likely to reach the individual who served you. The overall principle is that tipping is a gesture of appreciation rather than an obligation, and any tip, however modest, will be received with genuine gratitude in a country where service industry wages remain relatively low. Tip 14. Book accommodation in advance during peak season. Albania's tourism industry has been growing at remarkable speed in recent years, and while the country still has far fewer visitors than its Mediterranean neighbors, the most popular destinations can become surprisingly busy during the peak summer months of July and August. If you are planning to visit the Albanian Riviera, particularly the beaches around Cuisine, Dermi, or Himara, or if you intend to stay in Tirana, Berat, or Gjirokastër during midsummer, booking your accommodation well in advance is strongly advisable. The best small guest houses and boutique hotels in these locations fill up quickly, and leaving your accommodation to chance can result in either paying significantly more than necessary for last-minute availability or finding yourself in substandard lodgings. The good news is that Albania's accommodation options have improved enormously in recent years. You can now find excellent guest houses, boutique hotels, and apartment rentals across the country at prices that are a fraction of what you would pay in Greece or Croatia for equivalent quality. Outside of peak season, from May to June and from September to October, booking in advance is less critical, and you will often find that guest houses are happy to accommodate walk-in guests. For mountain trekking areas, such as Theth and Valbona, accommodation is more limited, and advance booking is always recommended regardless of the time of year. As these remote villages have a finite number of beds, a little planning goes a long way in ensuring that your Albanian trip runs smoothly from start to finish. Tip 15. Carry your passport and keep copies. Albanian law requires foreign visitors to carry valid identification at all times, and your passport is the most reliable document for this purpose. Albanian law requires foreign visitors to carry valid identification at all times, and your passport is the most reliable document for this purpose. Police checks are not uncommon, particularly at border crossing areas on certain road routes and in city centers during evening hours, and being unable to produce identification can cause delays and complications that are entirely avoidable. It is strongly recommended that you keep your original passport in a secure place, such as the safe in your hotel room, and carry a clear, good quality photocopy or a photograph of the main information page stored on your phone. This way, you have identification available at all times while reducing the risk of losing your original document. If your passport is lost or stolen, report it immediately to both the local police and your country's embassy or consulate. The Albanian police, known as Policia e Shtetit, are generally professional and approachable with tourists, particularly in areas that see regular visitor traffic. It is also advisable to register your travel plans with your home country's foreign affairs, ministry, or embassy. Many countries offer online registration services that allow their embassies to contact you in the event of an emergency. Keep digital and physical copies of your travel insurance, accommodation bookings, and emergency contact numbers separate from your phone and wallet. Citizens of most European Union countries and many other nations can enter Albania without a visa for stays of up to 90 days. Always verify the current entry requirements for your specific nationality before traveling, as these can change. Tip 16. Explore beyond Tirana. The real Albania is elsewhere. Tirana is a dynamic, colorful, and increasingly interesting capital city, and it deserves at least a day or two of your time. Its vibrant cafe culture, the colorful buildings of the Blocko district, the National History Museum, and the emerging gallery and restaurant scene all reward exploration. But if you spend your entire Albanian trip in Tirana, you will miss what makes the country truly extraordinary. Albania's greatest treasures lie beyond the capital, and the effort of traveling to them is richly rewarded. The World Heritage City of Gjirokast, with its stone towers and Ottoman castle, is one of the most remarkable urban environments in Europe. Berat, known as the City of 1,000 Windows for its distinctive Ottoman architecture, is equally stunning. The Albanian Riviera offers turquoise bays and wild beaches that rival anything the Mediterranean coast has to offer. The Albanian Alps in the north, particularly the Valbona Valley and the village of Theth, offer some of the finest mountain scenery and hiking on the continent, and the trail between the two is rightly celebrated as one of the great walks in the Balkans. Lake Komen, reached by a scenic ferry journey through dramatic gorges, is a landscape of almost surreal beauty. Apollonia, the ancient Greek city south of Tyre, and Butrint in the far south are archaeological sites of major significance. Renting a car, joining a small group tour, or simply taking furgons between towns will open up a version of Albania that most visitors who stay only in Tirana never see. The real Albania is waiting just beyond the capital. Tip 17. Be prepared for power cuts and internet variability. Albania has made significant progress in improving its infrastructure in recent years, and in Tirana and most larger towns you will generally find reliable electricity and reasonably good internet connectivity. However, outside the main urban centers, particularly in rural areas, mountain villages, and some coastal locations, power outages are still a reality that visitors should be prepared for rather than surprised by. Short power cuts can occur even in cities during periods of high demand or bad weather, and in more remote areas they may last longer and be more frequent. It is a good idea to keep your phone and other devices fully charged whenever you have the opportunity, carry a portable power bank, and have a small torch or headlamp available, particularly if you are staying in a mountain guest house or trekking in remote areas. Internet connectivity follows a similar pattern. Most hotels and guest houses in Tirana and tourist areas offer Wi-Fi of acceptable quality. In smaller and more remote locations, Wi-Fi may be slow, unreliable, or absent altogether. If you need reliable data connectivity throughout your trip, purchasing a local card from one of Albania's main mobile operators, such as Vodafone, Albania, Ala Telekom, or One is strongly recommended. Local cards are inexpensive, easy to buy at the airport or in phone shops in any town, and provide good data coverage across most of the country, including along the main roads and coastal areas. Having offline maps downloaded in advance is also a sensible precaution for driving or hiking in areas where signal may be weak. Tip 18. Respect the mountain code and stay safe while hiking. The Albanian Alps and the mountain regions of central and southern Albania offer some of the most spectacular and rewarding hiking in Europe. The landscapes are wild, dramatic, and largely unspoiled, and the sense of discovery that comes from exploring these areas is genuinely exhilarating. However, the mountains demand respect, preparation, and a realistic assessment of your abilities and equipment. Signage and trail marking in Albanian mountain areas has improved significantly in recent years, particularly in the Valbona-Theth corridor and in Lagora National Park, but it remains inconsistent and unreliable in less visited areas. Always carry a detailed map and a downloaded offline navigation app, such as Maps.me or Wikiloc, with the relevant trails loaded before you lose signal. Never rely solely on your phone for navigation in the mountains. Tell someone, your guest house host, a local guide, or a fellow traveler where you are going and when you expect to return. Weather in the Albanian Alps can change with extraordinary speed. Clear mornings can give way to violent afternoon thunderstorms, and fog can descend on mountain passes in minutes. Start hikes early and be prepared to turn back if conditions deteriorate. Appropriate footwear, proper hiking boots with ankle support is not optional in mountain terrain. Carry sufficient water, food, a first aid kit, an emergency whistle, and a warm layer even on summer days. If you are planning more serious or extended mountain routes, hiring a local guide is not only safer, but will also enrich your experience with knowledge of the landscape, flora, wildlife, and local culture that you would otherwise miss entirely. Tip 19. Understand Albanian time and pace. One of the most enjoyable adjustments a visitor to Albania must make is to the local sense of time and pace, which operates rather differently from what Northern Europeans or North Americans might be accustomed to. Albanian social and business life moves at a rhythm that prioritizes conversation, relationships, and the enjoyment of the present moment over clock watching and rigid scheduling. If you arrange to meet someone at a specific time, a delay of 15 to 30 minutes or more is entirely normal and carries no implication of disrespect. Restaurant service can be leisurely, particularly in smaller towns and family-run establishments, where the staff may also be preparing the food and managing the entire operation. Buses and furgons, as noted, depart when they are full rather than on a fixed timetable. Shops and businesses may keep irregular hours, particularly in smaller towns, and the midday rest period is still observed in many places, meaning that businesses may close between noon and 4 in the afternoon. All of this can be frustrating for visitors with a tightly packed itinerary, but it can also be an invitation to slow down and experience the country in a more relaxed and authentic way. The Albanian cafe culture is built around this pace. Long coffees, extended conversations, and the pleasure of watching daily life unfold are central to how people spend their time. Embracing this rhythm rather than fighting, it will transform your experience of Albania from a logistics exercise into a genuine immersion in a different and deeply enjoyable way of living. Build flexibility into your schedule and allow the country to unfold at its own pace. Tip 20. Leave with an open mind. Albania will surprise you. The single most valuable piece of advice for any visitor to Albania is to arrive with an open mind and leave your preconceptions at the airport. Albania suffers from an image problem in parts of the world, partly due to outdated associations with post-communist chaos and crime, and partly simply because it remains so little known. The reality you will encounter on the ground is dramatically different from whatever stereotypes may have shaped your expectations. You will find a country of extraordinary natural beauty, from the wild Albanian Alps to the turquoise bays of the Ionian coast. You will find cities and towns with a rich layering of history: ancient, Greek, Roman, Byzantine, Ottoman, communist, and modern, compressed into a small geographic area of remarkable diversity. You will find food that is fresh, generous, and delicious. You will find people who are genuinely warm, proud, and curious about the world, who will go out of their way to help a stranger, and who will make you feel welcome in a way that is increasingly rare in the more heavily touristed parts of Europe. You will also find a country that is changing fast, not always smoothly or without difficulty, but with energy and ambition. Albania is not a polished, manicured destination. The roads are sometimes rough, the systems sometimes unpredictable, and the infrastructure sometimes falls short of expectations. But this is also what makes it alive. Come with patience, curiosity, and a sense of adventure, and Albania will give you back far more than you bring. It is one of the last places in Europe that can still genuinely surprise you. Albania is waiting for you. Subscribe for more travel hacks and show some love with a like. Let's explore the world together.